Parental or other familial estrangement is a real thing these days, and it's more common than ever to block or cut off toxic friends, siblings, coworkers, whatever. But is there a healthy way to cut people off so you can feel at peace with your decision and in your life? The short answer is absolutely, but you need to know the do's and don'ts of cutting people off. So today I'm coming at you with the 3 big mistakes people make when they're cutting someone off and my 5 strategies for how to create healthier separations so you can find calm and ease in your relationships, even the ones you don't keep anymore. So stay tuned. Well, hello again. So happy you're here with me. This is a pretty heavy topic we're going to get into today. I'm hopefully going to make you feel, listen to me, I'm so codependent, lighter about this topic, or not lighter maybe, but more confident about this topic and your role in it and whether you should or shouldn't and all those things. So I'm going to cover a lot of bases today and I'm excited about it. Before I jump in, I want to say I am starting a Patreon. Or maybe I've already started if you're months late into listening. This particular episode should be coming out, I think, in September of 2024. And I am planning to start a Patreon in January of 2025. And what it's going to be, and I want your feedback. So I'm going to be talking about it, over these next few months, because I really want to hear from you. What would you most like to have on a Patreon? What would be worth it to you? Obviously, I'll have some level where you don't have to listen to those ads anymore. Something very inexpensive where you can support me. And, I'm really wanting to devote more and more time to the podcast, but that means I need to make money at it to do that or more money or whatever the words are for, about that. So I really need to think of it more as sort of my primary business than sort of this secondary little thing I love doing. Now that we're in year 7, and we keep growing, I'm realizing that I love doing it and I'd like to spend more time with you. So, and I was thinking that we would also have, levels where you had access to me. So I wanted to do an Ask Dr. Abby where you got, where you could be on live with me, or you could just send in questions and I would answer them and you could listen to them or watch it later. But I would be doing a live call every month where we could all be interactive together, which would really excite me. I could do more than one call a month, like what's your threshold? What's your Abby threshold? I guess I need to know. So email me at abby@abbymedcalf.com or comment under a video. If you're watching on YouTube, please like and subscribe. Or you can DM me on social media, some way that I could maybe hear from you directly about what you'd like to see more of. Would you like more strategies? Would you like some worksheets to be in the part of the Patreon where I send you like homework about each episode? I don't know. There's a lot of things I could do, and I would love to hear from you what you would like. What would be the most value for you? And I hope you'll follow me there and support me as we continue to grow this journey. All right. So, and just so we're clear, anybody who doesn't want to pay for Patreon, you will still get, I'm not going to skimp ever on the full value I give, because that has always been the point of the podcast, that you can have zero money and still have access to evidence-based, all my almost 40 years of experience now, experience, all that put together to really know what works and to really change your life. So that will never change, I promise. And I would love to, again, do more. So let's keep working on that and figure it out. And before I jump in too far, I want to be clear that I can't speak to all situations here. And at the end of the day, you need to decide what's best for you. And I promise you'll get no judgment from me. I'm going to say a lot of things today, but if this doesn't match or you don't want to do it, or you're like, my situation's different, Abby, that's okay. Don't leave a hateful comment. I don't need to hear that. Hear me now. That is okay. If speaking to a particular person traumatizes you or re-traumatizes you, or you listen to all the tips today and you're like, I just can't do them, I have to cut this person off. Yes, by all means. I am not going to keep you from that, nor should anybody. If you think that, you need to trust your gut and do that. I am behind you 100%. But having said that, I can tell you that I've noticed a rash of cutting people off. It's everywhere. And I don't think it's as healthy as we'd hoped. In some ways, I think it's great because I think people are finally taking back some power and realizing that it's not just okay, but amazing to stop allowing others to treat you poorly. Yay, I am all for that. I am here for that. I am sitting here, I am testifying. I love it. My worry, however, is that the pendulum is swinging too far in that direction. And that now that the door is open, I think too many people are walking through it without trying healthier options first because it's easier. It is easier to cut people off in a lot of ways. I know you might be thinking, no, it's really hard, Abby. I know it's hard, but I mean, in some ways, it's easier than really practicing your boundaries and practicing the things I'd like you to do first. I'm going to explain why today. Why is this so important? Because in my experience, if you don't cut people off in a healthy way, you'll keep attracting those types of relationships because you haven't learned the skills you need to co-create healthier relationships in your life. If you don't see me, you're not watching on YouTube, my hands are raised. Okay? And worse yet, you'll cut someone off, but still feel resentment or triggered when their name is mentioned. And this is no way to live. This is, to me, isn't really even cutting people off. You're just not talking to them. So I want to be just really clear. I think, again, it can be wonderful. And I think it's great that people actually see options where there used to not be any. Oh, I can't cut off my mother. That's terrible. But now you're like, I could cut off my mother. Wait a minute. There's more choice. And I always think choice is such a great thing. And again, feeling empowered and that you are really clear about how people are allowed to treat you. So I'm all for that. Don't think anything I'm saying today isn't. So I want to talk about the 3 big mistakes I see people make, which is related to what I just said, when they cut people out of their lives. Okay. These are the biggies. Mistake number 1, and I want to say this well, you think you've set boundaries, but you really haven't. And that's why you're at this point of cutting someone off. This is the most common reason I hear for wanting to cut people off, right? Is that they don't respect my boundaries. A client will tell me, I've told them for years that I don't like how they're treating me and they need to stop, but they just keep going back to those old behaviors. They get better for a little while and then it's back and I'm sick of it. So I'm cutting them off. I have no choice. The problem, and that can be very true. Again, I'm here for you. The problem is that telling someone that you don't like what they're doing or asking someone to stop treating you a certain way, it's not a boundary. Telling someone, that really hurts my feelings when you talk to me like that, that's not a boundary. Telling someone, you need to stop talking to me this way is not a boundary. So you're coming to me saying, I've been setting boundaries for years and they just trample them. No. So I've been talking about boundaries for a long time. I go deep in how to create and stick to real boundaries in my book that came out last year, Boundaries Made Easy, Your Roadmap to Connection, Ease, and Joy. But I'm going to give you a quick lesson right now. A real boundary, and you can find lots of free things on the website, as you know. A real boundary has your standard clearly stated. That's true. Hey, I'm not okay with you raising your voice when you speak to me. Hey, I don't allow people to talk about my body in that way, whatever. But it's then followed with what you're going to do if it continues. So I'm going to leave the room if you can't speak to me calmly. That's the boundary, not you need to stop speaking to me in that tone, but you need to stop speaking to me in that tone or raising your voice, and I'm going to leave the room if you can't speak to me calmly. And then you have to follow through on what you said you would do. And that's the thing that's always missing. It's not someone else's job to keep your boundary. I know it's very nice when they do it. I wish people would do it. But you're actually asking someone to keep your boundary when you won't even keep it yourself. And I need you to get that. So yeah, it's wonderful when people can just, do what we ask. What a thought, Abby. I wish we lived in that world. I probably wouldn't need to do this podcast, but we don't. It's not someone else's job to keep your boundary. That, my friend, is your job. I love you, but it is your job. Okay? All right. Mistake number 2. You're still full of anger and resentment. So you've cut people off, but you're still full of anger and resentment. That's a mistake. You did not cut them off the right way. Relationships are all about feelings, right? That's why we're in them. We got some kind of feeling from it, right? If you're not in a relationship with someone, you don't have any feelings generally, right? I live in a busy city. I pass hundreds of people every day. I got no feelings about them. In fact, I don't give them a second thought. I say with love because I'm not in any kind of relationship with them. If you're cutting people, if cutting people out means the toxic relationship stops, if that's your goal, right? Hey, this is too toxic. I have set boundaries, real ones, and they don't keep them no matter what. I'm tired of doing this thing with them. So if you've cut them out, the toxic relationships should stop. But if you're still feeling resentful or angry or sad or any of those feelings, you're still in a relationship with them. That's a little mic drop right there. If you didn't catch it, I'm not going to drop my mic because it's very expensive. Are you picking up what I'm laying down here? Are we on the same page? You're still in a relationship with them. If they, quote unquote, make you feel a certain way, and they don't, you do, but you get what I'm going here. They still have some hold or control over you. If you really want this person out of your life, it means you've got to find true loving detachment and peace with this person. If you cut people off, you should be left with neutral or love-based emotions only. No. And I go deep in the 3 steps to loving detachment. I will link to it in the show notes and under the video and in all the places. If you haven't listened or watched that yet, it's time, or read. You can read just the blog. It is time. You've got to learn loving detachment as part of all this. Okay, as part of all this. Mistake number 3. You want to cut off sympathy, but not empathy. And I find that people don't do that. They cut off empathy and they still feel a lot of sympathy. So, okay. You want to shift from sympathy to empathy with this person you're cutting off. And I find that the anger and resentment stay because you can't find any empathy for this other person. So you stay connected in this negative way. And this happens because, again, people easily confuse sympathy and empathy. There's some famous relationship guy, Matt something. I don't know. I saw some video where he says, your empathy is killing you. Your empathy is never killing you. Empathy is beautiful and wonderful. It's your sympathy. If I didn't listen to the video, so I don't really know what he said in there, and maybe he was meaning sympathy. But I hate when people confuse these because they are teaching you, to me, something that's going to keep you in a fear-based emotion, right? So when we feel sympathy for someone, we want to do for that person, okay? If your best friend's dad dies, you get into doing mode. Do you need anything? Can I bring something over? Should I talk to can I call people, right? You're leaning into the other person's needs, okay, in sympathy. And often in unhealthy or toxic relationships, you've done this for too long. You've worried about how your mom's going to react to something, you say, or you wonder how to say something to your dad so he gets it, right? That's something else. Okay? That's something else. That's sympathy. With empathy, we connect with the feeling, excuse me, the other person might be having, not the situation. You connect with a feeling, not a situation. I'm going to have a sip of water. Okay. Not the situation. You don't do anything to fix or to please the other person. Empathy is not fixing or pleasing the other person. I think people, again, really don't understand what these words mean, and they use them in a wrong way. And you realize, because I'm sure, who doesn't want to see themselves as a person full of empathy, full of compassion, full of kindness. So if someone tells you don't have any empathy for a toxic person or for this other person, whether they're toxic or not, you sort of lose this is why it doesn't go well, because you feel like, I don't want to be that person who doesn't have any empathy, but not having sympathy for them, when they're crying, you hurt my feelings or you upset me. You didn't upset them. You didn't hurt their feelings. That's their choice. Just like it's your choice how you feel. That it's getting out of that, the sympathy for them. Instead, when you look at them, I would hope you think, wow, this person is doing the best with the tools they have, and their tools really suck. Wow, this person has no self-awareness. Look, oh my gosh. It's like a third person looking in on the situation. So, you see your mom coming after you about how you're parenting again, and you see that she's feeling out of control or maybe useless in her life or threatened by you being like a better parent or whatever else. Oh, we didn't have to do that when you were a kid. You were just better behaved. Like this kind of passive aggressive bullshit, the stuff that kind of gets at you. It doesn't mean you agree that she should be feeling this way or acting so horribly with you as she criticizes your parenting. It means you can relate to times you have felt hopeless or irrelevant, or to a time you were completely unself-aware, and have compassion for where she's at. You'd then be very clear and hold your boundaries with her. Mom, I've told you before that commenting on my parenting in any way is unacceptable. By the way, if you say commenting instead of criticizing, I'm just going to go off top for 1 second here. If you say, Mom, I've told you before, you can't criticize how I parent, immediately she'll be like, I wasn't criticizing. I was trying to help. I'm just being helpful. You're too sensitive. Do you see the problem there? So if you change it to, Mom, I've told you before that, commenting on my parenting in any way is unacceptable. In any way, positive or negative, is unacceptable. So we'll be leaving now. And maybe we can try this another time. And then you have to leave. That is the difference here. That is the difference here. There's a wonderful book by Gay Hendricks called, what's it called? The Big Leap. Sorry. He has a lot of good books. And in it, he talks about something called an enlightened no. So when someone's coming at us with something, a request maybe, so maybe someone's asking you to, your mom is saying, I need you to come over on Sunday and help, I don't know, get ready for your dad's birthday party, something like that, right? And you've got 2 kids and you're busy and you've got 100 things going on. And you're like, Mom, can't I just pay for someone to come set up? Or can't my brother do it who doesn't have a job or kids? Or can't, you're thinking all those things, right? And so in your head, you get mad, you get resentful. Like, God, it's always me. I'm the one who's always asked. This is pissing me off. She's always, even when I say no, she's just relentless and she'll keep asking until I give in. Again, you're setting yourself up like a victim because that's BS. I hate that. But regardless, that's how you go to. And so you get in this head where you're like, that's a hard no. It's a hard no. When I hear people say hard no, I feel so bad for them. I really do. And I've said it before too. So I feel bad for myself. A hard no is defensive. It means that you don't think you'll even keep your boundary. That's why else do you need to get defensive? You just say no and you just stick to it. Yeah, but you're not. And again, you get mad at them. So you get mad at them for even asking. How dare they ask? You get so pissed at the other person when you're the one who's not holding your boundary. I talk about this a lot, I know, but I keep talking about it because people keep missing this. We want to blame others for our lot in life, and you got to stop. If you want a happy life filled with peace, joy, ease, connection, growth, flow, all the things, being a victim ain't going to get you there. Okay. So and you're a victim when you're blaming other people. You're blaming your mom for how she's talking to you. It doesn't work that way. So this hard no is defensive. It's from a fear-based emotion. It's not good. Gay Hendricks talks about something called an enlightened no, where we think about, instead you would think, what are my priorities for myself? What are my who am I as a person? And I'm someone who doesn't people please. I'm someone who doesn't say no out of fear of other people's reactions. I'm someone who knows myself. I know how generous and kind I am. And this isn't part of it. And I'll just feel resentful if I go do this thing. And I don't want to feel resentful. I want to feel loving and kind. So that's an enlightened no. That's what's I call it an aligned no. I'm sure many people have called it that, but that's how I say it. It's like you're aligned. You're aligned with, your higher power, your higher being. You're aligned with your sense of purpose and self. You're aligned with your priorities and goals. And see the difference though when you say no in that from that place. There's compassion, there's empathy, but there's not sympathy. There's not resentment. There's not all those other things. So I really want you to think about in your life, how much are you giving an enlightened no, an aligned no? Really good to do. All right. So there's the mistakes I see people making. So what can you do? And so here are healthy things to do. I'm going to say before cutting people off or as you cut people off. And these are to me the healthier ways to do that. Because remember, when you're cutting people off, you're employing the thickest boundary you can make. Remember, I talk about boundaries on a continuum from thin to thick. Thin boundaries are where, you're people pleasing, you're codependent, you don't know where you stop and someone else begins, you say yes to everything, you run around completely just, a bundle of emotions, and it only matters how other people feel about you. On the other end of the spectrum are these thick boundaries where we get very formal with people, we cut people off, we don't talk to them again, where there's no interaction at all, or we don't care at all what other people think, say, anything. But again, not with love. I try really hard not to, it's not, to think, I try hard to think it's none of my business what other people are thinking about me. I try real hard when someone leaves a nasty comment under one of my videos to find compassion for them and to realize that their life must be pretty miserable to be stopping everything and taking time when they're getting free, absolutely free information to say how much they hate me or whatever. I can't imagine living that kind of miserable life. And so I really do what I consider a miserable life. Sorry, I don't even want to judge them. They might think they're very happy. Good for them. It's not how I want to live. That's all I know. It's not how I want to live. And so that's it. And you can sort of, right? But I'm not going to engage with them. I'm not going to respond. I'm not going to do anything. And I might even block their message or block them from being able to leave a message. I might do something like that, but I'm not feeling furious. I'm not thinking about it for weeks and days. I'm not engaged. Now, obviously that's a lot easier than, your mom or your, your uncle or your brother or your best friend. Obviously that's easier than that. I get that, but I'm just sort of giving like a small, idea of that. So, but what I find is that people go from boundaries that are too thin to boundaries that are too thick. And that's really what this whole episode is about, that I don't want you going too thick just in reaction to having been too thin for too long. So when you cut people off, this person no longer has, and it's a privilege to interact with you, and they don't get that anymore. And that's okay. Never speaking someone again and declaring that boundary, again, is not something I recommend as a first option unless you're in a situation, again, where you believe you're being abused physically, mentally, emotionally, again, where you might, as I said in the beginning, feel like there is no other choice for you. Again, I'm going to always support you. I'm asking though that if you think you've set a boundary, but you really haven't, that maybe you go back to trying that. And only because I don't want you to continue to get into these kinds of abusive relationships. And in my experience, you will. In my experience with my clients, they end up with either a toxic boss or or a work situation that's toxic, or they end up with, a partner who is, even though they cut off their mom who was, and they just seem to repeat it in a lot of ways, or they end up very disconnected with everybody in their life in a way because nothing feels safe. So there are definitely some people listening who have cut people off and you've done an excellent job about it and you feel good and at peace and serene. And I am here for you. I think that's wonderful. I know the vast majority of you listening do not have that experience. So when you stop speaking to someone altogether, like I said, you're not working on your boundary. You're not learning to hold your boundaries when it gets hard. And as I've said, you're likely, again, you're going to keep getting to these kind of relationships because this is a skill set you need to keep yourself safe. Boundaries, holding them, knowing your boundaries, holding your boundaries, employing your boundaries, sticking to them is absolutely a skill set. And it is the most valuable skill set you will ever create. Listening is a skill, self-confidence is a skill, boundaries are a skill. So you have to practice them to get better at them. And if you've been thinking you've been making boundaries, but after you've listened today, realize you haven't, then, maybe there's some other work to do. And when you make a big proclamation or announcement that someone is, cut off, or when you block them or on your phone or social media, you again are drawing a huge line in the sand. And what I found is that this often results in eventually allowing this person back in your life because you feel mean or guilty. There's that sympathy over empathy thing again, or because it's just not possible to never speak to that person again, right? If your brother is the one who always tramples your boundaries, you might quickly realize that you can't cut him off because he's going to be at all the holiday dinners for the rest of your life. So you're going to have to maybe see him if you want to keep attending these dinners yourself. What I want you to do first is practice those boundaries. So I want to give you some strategies my clients have found highly successful over the years when they feel they need to draw thicker boundaries, but not formally cut people off. And again, they might still be cutting people off, but not in a formal sort of declarative way. Okay. So strategy number one is to be very specific with what you share. So maybe instead of never speaking to this person again, stop sharing anything personal. I see it all the time. I see it. People get into trouble because you trust this other person with private information and then they use it against you. They criticize you, maybe even gossip about you. Whatever the reason, stop giving this person ammunition. Instead, when you're in a calm headspace, make a list of safe topics you can discuss and don't stray from those, right? I have shared many times on this podcast the issues I had with my mom, who had narcissistic personality disorder for real, not the made up kind, but the real kind, like diagnosable. And I didn't want to cut her off for many reasons. And let me just say this, one of my biggest ones, I'll say to all the parents out there who are parents themselves and might want to cut off their parents, which again, if you need to do it, but I didn't want my kids thinking it was okay to cut me off later. And if I cut off my mom and never spoke to her again, trust me, then that's an option for my kids to do with me. And I don't want them to have that, as a first option. Okay, as a first option. I would have cut her. I did cut her off in a way, like I was emotionally cutting off from parts of my life, just not all of her life. But I do want to remind people that parents especially, your kids are watching you and how you do this. So do it well. And again, you can still cut people off, but do it in a really healthy way and with empathy, not anger and resentment. Okay. So if my kids do ever decide to cut me off later, if it's with empathy, it's going to feel different. I know it is. And I hope they never do, but time will tell. So there were a lot of reasons I didn't want to cut my mother off there, but there were many, and I mean many years, I struggled until I figured out how to set and hold my boundaries with her. And this is something I did relentlessly. And I did finally find my peace with her, this particular strategy. So for me, I would speak to her only about my work, my kids' sports. That's the best part of having kids if you don't like your parents, because you can talk about the kids and not yourself. But or anything my kids were doing musically. My mom was a concert pianist, played piano, so she loved anything about music. But do you see how specific that is? When Max was having trouble in school, as a lot of you know, because I've talked about my son before, he was having a lot of trouble in school. I didn't let her know. Never talked about school. She'd say, "How's Matt? How's school?" I'm like, "Oh, it's great." And I would just go to the next thing. When McCartney, my daughter fell off her bike and she knocked out her front tooth when she was a little kid. She needed multiple stitches. I did not tell my mom. I did not let her know. Why? Because these were dangerous areas for me. These were areas where I already felt, vulnerable as a parent. I just didn't always feel like a great parent. I felt so like a fish out of water in my parenting, and I worried about it. So sharing parenting stuff where she could come at me, "Oh, I never let you fall off a bike," or whatever. Sharing it would have been disastrous for me as I dealt with her judgment and criticism, right? All in the form of her I'm just trying to help. Suggestions. So for me, instead, I kept notes in my phone. I really did this of anytime the kids would accomplish something or something funny happened with the dog, I would share those with her when we spoke. Oh, McCartney just got approved to pitch on our softball team. Max is switching from outfield to catcher. McCartney just learned a new song on the guitar. Maybe I chat about my work. I just finished X season of the podcast. Yeah, I was surprised at how popular a certain episode was. We would, and here's the real kicker I want to tell you, because I was in a loving space. I wasn't feeling defensive. I wasn't worried. I wasn't scared all the time on the phone with her because I kept my boundaries. We would very surprised. Trust me, I was more surprised than anybody. We would have pretty great conversations about these topics when I actually felt sort of close to her because we would share things and they weren't my most intimate things, but they were little shares and they were something we could laugh about together and sort of bond over a little together. And inevitably, right, she'd ask about, my relationship and with Gary and I would say, oh God, Gary's great. Nothing really to report there. Or I might say, he's great. Work is going well. His softball team actually won a game the other night, something like that, right? And for sure, sometimes she'd come back, especially in the beginning when I was first doing this, with some, hopeful hook. Oh, but how are the two of you really doing? It can't be great all the time, right? I would hear that. And I'd respond in, again, my most cheerful voice. I don't know what to tell you. All is well and I'm happy. And then I would change the subject. I would just go right into one of my little topics that I already had in the notes on my phone. And again, although I kept our topics relatively shallow, I really did my best to try to connect with love and patience and compassion with her. And that's how we really connect with others. With feelings, not content. You connect with anybody in your life around feelings, not the content. So when you're on the defensive in any conversation, you're not connecting because you're coming from fear. I don't care what you're talking about. I know it sounds crazy, but I never felt closer to my mom than I did when I started having those thicker boundaries in what I shared. And I'm really grateful to say that when she died, I really felt quite loving towards her, something I never thought I could achieve. Granted, it took me, 50 years to get there, but I did. And, by taking out the kind of hot topics, I was more relaxed. I was more playful. I was more compassionate with her. Again, we connect with feelings, not thoughts. It's not about what you share. It's about that loving intent. It's about how you feel. And when I was feeling more loving with her, she was more relaxed. She was doing things differently. I'm telling you, it just really snowballs. It wasn't all perfect. It was not perfect. She would say things. There were plenty of times when I had to keep to my boundary and say, hey, she would talk about my daughter's body or something. At the time, I think my daughter was like 8 years old, and she would talk about her body, like in a sexualized way, really sick stuff. And I would just like, you know what? I got to go. I really told you before we can't talk about McCartney's body, but I love you. I hope you have a good day. And I'm sure we'll talk soon. And I would literally hang up the phone on her. And that was it. And sometimes she'd be upset. Sometimes she wouldn't. The more I did it, the less upset she got over time and the less she did the stuff. It still came up. She was never cured. Don't get me wrong. But it was so much less. And I was able to, again, really react in ways that worked. And I'm not just talking about me and my life. I'm giving you this example for this, but my clients report. I get so many good reports back from clients employing this technique. It really, really works. Okay. The second strategy I would tell you to do is to shift the conversation. If the other person simply won't stop talking about your weight or gossiping about your sister or talking about, how you should have a better job, the fail-safe response is this. Are you ready? There are so many things I'd love to talk about with you, and this isn't one of them. And then talk about the new thing. Then just boom, go into the new topic. Or there are so many things I'm really excited about in my life right now that I'd love to chat with you about instead, like, and just go and then swiftly change the topic. It's a game changer. Do it with your most lighthearted and loving voice. You will find that the other person is easily led to something else you can maybe even connect on, right? It's incredible. When all else fails, I find simply asking the other person questions about their life is a great way to shift the conversation. People love to talk about themselves. And you can think to yourself, when I speak to my brother, I'm only going to listen and attempt to connect that way. Don't think about a reciprocal relationship necessarily. Think about one that works for you as you keep this person in your life with a thicker boundary, but not the completely thickest of boundaries, okay, of cutting off. And again, I want to be clear, you might find like, I don't want this kind of relationship with my brother. I just want to cut him off completely. Then that's what you do. I'm trying to give you options and explain what happens here when we do those things. And I would love it if you would try this first and see if it works for you. I was so surprised. I really was at how I thought the same thing. I was like, oh, I don't want these fake relationships. I'm not fake. I'm real, blah, blah, blah. And they didn't feel fake because, again, it's about feelings. And I started to feel some love. I started to remember my mom, for some of the good things. I started to remember maybe one of my brothers, when we were young and they were different. I don't know. It's kind of interesting what starts to happen, but I'd love for you to try it and see how it feels for you. The biggie is that, again, that not feeling defensive or scared when their name came up or when something was going on about them in my family. I wasn't, in some situation where I wasn't talking to people. It made my life better this way. It felt simpler. For you, it might not. But again, for the vast majority of my clients, they report it over and over like, wow, this is so much easier. I feel so much better. They just feel different in their relationships. Strategy number 3, get yourself into a good headspace first. If there's someone in your life you're ready to cut off, think about it. You're likely very angry with them or feeling full of resentment. When you think of them or see their name pop up on your phone, all those feelings of helplessness, resentment, frustration, right, probably come right to the top. And if you try to speak with someone or respond to a text or post, from that place, it's going to be bad for you because it's very hard to hold your boundaries when fear is hijacking your brain. I want you to get in the habit of always pausing before responding to anyone you're struggling with. You can say, I'll get back to you if it's in the moment, and they're suddenly on top of you. If it's not, like, they're calling, texting, emailing, or posting, you need to consistently really wait until you can gather yourself into a more centered, love-based headspace before you respond. And one of my favorite hacks for this is to change the person's name in your phone. When my mother would call me, the word breathe would show up because that's what I named her in my contacts. I have heard that with one of the new iPhone updates, they can see what you name them. So be careful with this. I'm not sure about all that. I haven't tested it, but I've shared before, I had a client who had a really difficult mother-in-law, and he renamed her Mothra in his phone, right? Because he used to watch the old Godzilla movies when he was a kid, and Mothra always made him smile. So seeing the person's name like this is a quick way to shift from that autopilot into conscious thoughtfulness when it comes to interacting with this person. And that's super, super helpful. And I will also say, I'll just use my mom again. When she would call me, I wouldn't answer the phone no matter what. It was never a good idea for me to speak to her on the fly because it was harder to hold my boundaries. It was harder to even remember my boundaries. And instead, I would take a beat. I'd bring myself to a calm, loving place, and then I'd return the call. And sometimes, really, this meant calling her right back, like, oh, I just missed it. And other times, it meant calling in a few days. I will tell you, by the way, that never, ever once did she seem to notice that I did this. which is interesting. But even if she had, she probably would have said something snide like, "Oh, I tried to call and you didn't answer." I don't know. But so what? I guess I would have let that slide if she had done that. But yeah. So just keep it in mind. See what happens for you. Strategy number 4 is to let them go gently. And, you got to cut them off. You want to cut them off. You can let them go gently instead of the hard, I am blocking you on all, so, making the pronouncements. I have a client who has some older college friendships that really aren't working for her anymore. And by the way, this happens a lot when you get into therapy and you start to really heal and be different in your life and change who you are and how you are. You don't like the same people you liked 15 years ago. You don't put up with the same crap. You don't want to talk about the same things because you have evolved and changed as a human. But so these college friendships really weren't working for her anymore. The women were kind of nasty, actually, she realized to her. They weren't kind to her. It was a very one-sided friendship where she was always putting out for them, but they weren't reciprocating in kind. But she really felt at a loss for how to let the friendships go without making some big pronouncement. And these are times when I tell my clients to let go gently. And I did this with her and it worked. It's been working very well with her. So first and foremost, don't be the person to reach out ever. If the other person complains about it, just ignore it. You'd be amazed what happens when you ignore. It's very powerful. Or, let them know, hey, yeah, this is the best I can do right now. Real busy. Just leave it however you want to. Don't argue with them. Don't be cajoled. This is your boundary right now. Now, when they do contact you, whether by text or call, okay, you can text back with something easy and generic. Hey, all is great here. Busy as usual with work and kids. Hope all is well there too. You're still responding, but not with any real information, kind of going back to that initial thing of what you share. Do not respond with a question that prolongs the conversation, right? You don't want to say, oh, feeling great. How are things with you? Don't do it. Do not call back even if they called. Text or email is your friend when you're letting go of relationships. I know, it's very powerful. If you're invited to things, let the other person know you can't make it, but don't get into the reasons why. Don't get into the reasons why. I talk about all this in my Boundaries Made Easy book, but when you start giving reasons why, you get the arguments back. People push back. Well, what do you mean you can't come on Saturday that you're busy with work? Can't you finish things during the week and get everything done so I can see you on Saturday? Don't do that. Just say, yeah, oh my gosh, can't come. And they might ask sometimes, well, oh, what's so important that you can't come? They might even do it a little jokingly. Either don't respond again, don't respond, or respond and say something else. Like, wish I could be there, but I can't. Well, that's kind of a lie. So maybe don't say a lie. Yeah, don't say you're sorry either. Just get to, yep, can't come, sending great wishes for the day. Or just sending great wishes for the day. You can also do this slowly by attending less things over time until you wean yourself out of their life and invitations. So you don't need to unfollow or block them on social media, but you can stop engaging with their posts or comments, right? So, and in the meantime, go out there and find your peeps, join a book club, take a yoga class in person, go instead of online, go into the office more. Try working at a local cafe once a week. Take your kids to a different park. Join a parenting group. Volunteer at your kids' school. Start attending church, mosque, temple, right? Get it? Lots of other things to do. You won't be able to make new friends if you aren't out in the world meeting people. And it's going to be much easier to let go of unhealthy people in your life if you've got new, healthier ones in place. So get those going, right? Do you see where I'm going here? And again, I want to say that if you try using these tools and techniques and still find that you can't keep your boundaries with someone, again, it might be time to cut them off completely. Don't put yourself in abusive situations ever. And if the only way to keep yourself safe is to remove them from your life, then maybe it is time to do that. But again, I'm hoping you're going to try other things first. And the last thing I want to mention, strategy number 5 is to learn to create healthy boundaries, right? You'll either continue to get into these unhealthy situations with people, like this if you don't learn the skill of boundary setting. And there are tons of free resources on my website, all over YouTube. Just use keywords, on my website or on YouTube with my name. There's tons of free resources I have. And you can get really nitty gritty with the steps in my book I mentioned, Boundaries Made Easy. You can do any of these things. You can spend money or not spend money. I'm here for you. But really, it is time to learn this skill, because this is what will set you free when it comes to your relationships with people. And this is what will help you if you do cut them off with, even if you don't cut them off initially with empathy, you eventually do the work with a therapist or however else, so that you can find that, so you don't stay connected with hate and resentment. Okay? That's the most important thing, because I love you. I want you to feel free. If you're cutting someone off, it should feel a feeling of freedom on every level. Freedom of them occupying your brain, freedom of you hating them or feeling resentful or angry or sad. It should be freedom on every level. And if it's not there, that's the stuff you have to work on. Not with them, don't worry. They'll go do their thing, but with yourself and your own therapy or however you do that. Okay? All right. That is it for today. I hope you got a lot out of today's broadcast. I'm really excited about this topic and how it can truly change your life. Remember to DM me or email me at abby@abbymedcalf.com, or comment under the video with any ideas you have about what you'd like to see as part of the Patreon club, tribe, group, community in January of 2025. I'm really excited about it. I feel excited to have more interaction with you. That would really make me very, very happy. And please, if you haven't yet, leave a review for the podcast. If you're listening this long, I would really appreciate it. Leave a review wherever you listen. There's always a space to leave a review. Or again, follow me on social media if you want to support me. You can buy a mug or a notebook on the website too. Any of those things support me, but I never want you to think you have to spend money to support me. We are in a relationship. I want you to get that the relationship doesn't have to be, some kind of transactional thing, but it does have to be where you're not just receiving, where you're also giving, because that's true of a relationship. So however you want to give, whatever's most comfortable for you, brings the most value to your own life, is what I want you doing. And if that's just saying something nice under a video to me or sending me an email thanking me, you've made my day. And I feel like we're connected in a really great way. All right. I love you so much. Thank you for spending this time with me. I know you have a lot of choices on how you spend your time, and I always feel so honored and so happy. I'm going to try not to cry about our connection. It really means the world to me. Thank you for making my life better. All right. We'll talk soon.